Hey everybody, so it's the day after Christmas, and I only gave one Christmas gift this year, and it was a poster of this map that I gave to my niece. She's about 5 years old, and she really loves animals, and I wanted to give her this map that kind of shows how owls see the world. And I also wanted to share this map with you all. I'm not going to do an in-depth talk about all of the different steps and techniques that I went through to create this map, but I will include a lot of links to various sources explaining how to do these steps in both ArcGIS Pro and QGIS. But what I really want to focus on is the inspiration behind the map and the sort of thinking and cartographic process behind creating this map. I also want to just give a little note from the outset. You can see that I've scrubbed the personal identifiable information. I took her name out, I took the names of the roads and stuff out because I don't want to be sharing that information with any potential internet creeps. Okay, so I have been on this sort of binge watching John Nelson's videos, and I mean, if you know, you know. But if you don't know, please check out John Nelson's maps. I'll put links in the description. He's got all of these creative ways of visualizing geospatial information that everybody should check out. I recently saw his video that he made about this Firefly style file, and you can see it's got this really cool effect of when put against a sort of darker background, giving this illumination effect. Like, it just makes things really pop, and all these wonderful colors and stuff. So I'll put a link in the description. So he said, please steal this style file, so I very well did. He also inspired me to go look at the Dave Rumsey Historical Map Collection. Now this is right up my alley. I'm a historic landscapes cartographer. Right now I'm working with the National Park Service drawing historic landscapes, and I do a lot of it on my own. So big find for me to see this. And just on a whim, I had started looking up different animal names to see what they might have for old maps. And I looked up owl, and I came across this cool little, picture map of the Bohemian Grove campgrounds. I'm not even really sure exactly. So it's in Sonoma County, California, and you can see it really pops. There's a whole lot of stuff going on here. There's a reference scale, so this is probably a map that they put on like a wayside, or maybe they had printouts in the camp store or something, so that campers could get around, and they really targeted this toward kids. You've got this cute little owl picture here, and he's looking down, and it says, an owl's eye view of Bohemian Grove. Now, of course, this is just a play on the concept of a bird's eye view, which is something that we talk a lot about when we talk about creating maps. It didn't have to be an owl, but I thought that was kind of a fun little concept. I wondered if there was a way that I could actually map what something closer to what an owl might actually see. So I started doing some research. I started looking at how owls see the world. And right away I've got this cool information about binocular versus monocular vision. So you've got 70 degrees. I mean, that's just begging to be geospatial information. I also found out that they're mostly colorblind. They don't really see color. I think I did read somewhere that some owls are able to perceive the colors of blue and yellow. But yeah, you see, most owls see limited color or monochrome. So that was like a fun little start, but then I got on to trying to find out how owls inhabit the forest. And I picked the great horned owl just because it's a very iconic bird, and it's one you can see this nesting range. I mean, it lives everywhere. So pretty decent chance that my niece will see a great horned owl in her lifetime. So just to start off, I mean, of course, there's all sorts of good geographic information here. Nothing that I really thought would really help me that much. But then there's some more information here, right? Nesting habitat, forest versus open woodland. This is, got me thinking about land cover data sets, but it also got me thinking about canopy height models that can show you the heights of trees, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Because then what I ultimately landed on here was this nestwatch.org has nest box placement. This is for sort of people at home, citizen scientists, whoever who want to help birds, to help them figure out if they want to build a birdhouse and give these birds a chance to escape decline, to build nests around their land and maybe help out these birds. And I'm already thinking canopy height, and look, I've got 15 feet to 45 feet, which is where they're nesting. This is really sort of the understory. So my mind sort of ran away right there once I saw that. So we'll look at my ArcGIS Pro project. Ta-da! So these are the outlines of my USGS LiDAR point cloud LAS data set. I had to find, in my area of interest, I had to sort of stitch together 6 separate LAS data sets. Like I said, I'll put a link in the description on how to find LAS data sets and how to process them. But let's just take a quick look here. For those of you who maybe aren't familiar with LAS data sets, so these are just laser-derived points that show the heights of the landscape within my area of interest. You can see some of the overlap between the data sets here. That's all that is. And you can come up here and filter your different points. So right now we're looking at them all. But if I just want to see the ground, I just click ground and you give it a second. And so now you can see this is basically just a regular, almost a digital elevation model at this point. These will be used to make a digital elevation model. And it's leaving out, we've got the river here. So it's the river. Let me throw on the world imagery real quick. There we go. We got the pond, the edges of the river. But you can see it is excluding some things like houses. It's roughly excluding these trees here, but the actual data set does collect those. So if you do first point returns, well, let's look at non-ground first. So non-ground, see, now we got everything else but the ground. You're going to have a little bit here and there of ground collection. These aren't perfect data sets, but now I've got these trees, and I know that these are collecting the elevation of these trees. That's an important distinction to make, that these are currently elevation and not height. And so what I can do is I can use this information to create, well, I'll create a digital elevation model. Let me turn the world imagery off. There we go. This is the ground LiDAR point returns rendered as a raster graphic. And the other thing that I can do the same thing with the canopy. So this is showing the height of everything, including, there's some ground here, but you can start to pick out sort of the trees and the spaces between the trees, and what we'll do is, let's do some, where am I? we do some raster algebra, the raster calculator tool. And what you do is you take your canopy model and you subtract your digital elevation, your ground. You take the ground out of this canopy model, and what you're left with, I already ran this, you're left with canopy height. So this looks pretty similar to these two. It's just this canopy model without the ground. And so, you know, if I wanted to, I could take this data set and try to symbolize it using different color ramps, you know, and maybe try to give it, you know, some kind of a look at you know, where those owls are going to be nesting and stuff. But instead I decided to do something kind of unconventional. I took this canopy height model and I went and I generated contours from it, right? So if I go to my contour tool and I just input my canopy height model. Now this is rather unconventional. It doesn't really make sense, I think, in most situations to draw contours of your canopy height, but I thought it would be a funner way to sort of symbolize and to sort of separate the different areas of the canopy. And so here's what that looked like. This is going to take a minute to load because these data sets are incredibly dense, and there's a whole lot going on here, a whole lot that the software has to visualize at once. And so what I did with them was I symbolized them by the different heights. I did these at about 1 foot contour intervals and symbolized them using, so here are my ground levels, right? I've got some -2, -1, all the way up to 15 feet. And the symbol that I used for them, I imported the Firefly style file and I symbolized them in blue because I figured they would pop really well against this sort of gold and yellow. Everything that is between, sorry, I took those out. Everything between 15 and 45 in yellow, so that they're really bright. And then everything in the upper canopy, I gave it this sort of, so in the Firefly style file, there's this white line, and it's actually layered so that it has mostly solid strokes, and I took away some of the white because it was a little bit overwhelming, and I used this dashed version of the line just to kind of scale it back. I also had to take out there was a lot of yellow here, so I had to take out, I took out sort of all of the even numbers, so it's just the odd numbers with the 15, the 30, and the 45 symbolized in yellow. Of course, this works best against a dark background, so I took my digital elevation model and I made a regular hillshade out of it. This is a single directional hillshade. So these contour lines pop a little bit more, but it's not quite dark enough. So all I did was I recycled my DEM. I made a shaded relief model by overlaying my digital elevation model over the hillshade, and I used this multiply blend mode to sort of just darken everything where there were no contours. So here's the regular hillshade, and here it is with the blended DEM. So it got a lot darker, especially right here in the valley. And that was a lot better for displaying my contours. Next, what I did was I wanted to, I wanted to show some of these features, and I did get some data sets that show, these river center lines and the outlines of the ponds. But you'll see they're very jagged. They're not particularly nice looking. They're not very pleasant to look at. So what I did was I traced over them, and I used the uh, curve tool tracing. And if you're not familiar with that, basically when you go to your create and your line, down here you can do your curve tool, and we'll make some pretty curves. And I also symbolize that using the blue from John's Firefly style file. We'll just delete that real quick. So now I've got my streams. I did the same thing for my road layer. I did the same thing for the pond, and I ended up with something that gave what I thought was a really cool effect over my area of interest. Now, this is all really cool and all, I think, but a lot of this is going to go over a 5-year-old's head. This is stuff that it takes a little bit of background knowledge and experience to really sort of understand what's going on here. It's not completely intuitive. And so what I did, I went over into create a layout to sort of explain it like I'm 5, right? Explain everything that's kind of going on here. And again, I don't expect my 5-year-old niece to completely understand what's going on, but by importing some of these vector graphics, these are royalty-free vector graphics that I picked up for free online, by pasting some of these into my layout, I'm now starting to give a better idea of what's going on here. And instead of doing a regular map legend, I decided to give this little description that really outlines what's going on here. Again, it's probably going to be a couple years before she understands these, but I don't mind. There's a whole lot of pretty colors going on. She immediately recognized the owl and loved everything that was in here. And understanding, cultivating a sense of place and a sense of the natural world is something that you do over a lifetime. It's not something that you're expected to do at any given point. It's not something that's easy to quantify and relegate to a typical age range. But in order to add some interest to the map, I added this little inset with this picture of my niece's house overhead. Once again, I'm not sure what her ability is actually to comprehend, this overhead view and see that, these geometric shapes actually represent her house. But maybe she can. But this is how an owl's seeing, right? This is how an owl thinks. So it's getting her into a headspace, maybe a little bit later down the line, of understanding spatial information and getting into the minds of the more than human world. The last thing I wanted to add here was some polygon notes here. This is sort of a vignette effect. It's doing two things at once. So it's showing, I calculated out 70 degrees of this angle here. I had it roughly centered when I originally drew it on her house, but you can see it's a little bit out of center now because I had to shift some things around. I added this little explainer here. Oops, nope, wrong one. I added a little explainer here to show that this is, 70 degrees of binocular vision. And it created something of a vignette. It shows not only what the owl's seeing, but it's drawing into focus the rest of this map. The other thing that was fun was I got to use this font. Geez, I'm trying to remember what font this is. This is a font I'm probably never ever going to be able to. Snap ITC. Yeah, I don't think I will ever probably use this again. But this was perfect for a 5-year-old. So this is my map. This is what I drew. I was very proud of it. My niece loved it. I will post it on my website. Again, there will be a link in the description, so that if you want to go and see what this is. So thank you for taking the time to watch, and happy mapping.